In 1967, psychiatrist John Barker and journalist Peter Fairley posted a column in the London Evening Standard. It appealed for anyone who had visions or dreams of real disasters before they happened to call in. The pair were conducting an experiment of sorts to see if tragedies could be predicted, acted upon, and even prevented. Quickly, their paper was flooded with calls from people claiming to have some kind of precognition and ability to see events before they took place. Most of the calls they received were predictions that never came to pass. But for a small number of individuals, they were able to paint vivid and unsettling pictures of the near future with startling accuracy. Welcome to Campfire Archives. This is the mystifying account of the Premonitions Bureau. The story begins, Tom, before the formation of the Bureau with something called the Aberfan disaster. Have you ever heard of the Aberfan disaster?
It brings to mind something, but no, I think no. You go for it.
It's pretty horrific. It begins in Aberfan, which is this small Welsh mining village. Now, it's located in a valley, and at the top of the hill is a tip for coal mining waste, because there's a mine nearby. This is a pit town. Now, due to negligence on the part of the company that owns the pit, mud, rock and various kind of debris has been mixing with rainwater for months, becoming this kind of thick slurry at the top of this hill. Now, despite warnings from the locals, the company hasn't rectified this. So this problem is basically getting bigger and bigger as time goes on. It's 9:15 on Friday the 21st of October 1966, and it's the last day before the half-term break. And people are just getting started with the days. Suddenly, this tip at the top of the hill bursts its banks. So around 180,000 tonnes of thick slurry starts racing down this hill. It's going at speeds of up to 30 miles an hour, and it's as high as 30 feet in places.
God.
Yeah, so it's this huge black wave of slurry coming down this hill really quite fast, barreling towards this town. Now, the avalanche smashes through a farm, a row of houses, killing a few people, and then it smashes into the primary school and secondary schools, effectively burying them.
With the kids inside?
With the kids inside.
Oh, God.
It's 9:15, so school has started at this point. All told, 144 people end up losing their lives, with 116 of them being children at these schools.
Horrible.
So in a nutshell, the village loses effectively about half of their primary school children in an instant.
Like a whole generation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's horrific. So emergency workers, miners, parents, basically everyone who can starts frantically digging at this huge black mass that was once the school. They're using tools, some are even just using their bare hands, just trying to get as many children out as possible. Enter John Barker. He's a psychiatrist. Now, John is currently working at an asylum, but he's quite interested in some obscure ends of the scientific spectrum. So he's writing a book on something called voodoo death, which is effectively where primitive people would die of fright, in a nutshell. So John hears about a boy that actually gets pulled from the wreckage of the school and survives, but later effectively dies of shock, of fright. So John thinks he's going to go down, he's going to investigate, and he's potentially going to write this boy's case up and include it in his book. John gets there, he arrives at Aberfan, and as you'd expect, he sees bodies are still being pulled from the wreckage, mourning's ongoing, this community has been ripped apart, and rightly so, he thinks it's probably a bit inappropriate for me to start asking about this young boy's death.
Yeah.
However, he decides to spend some time there, speak with the families, and something begins to become apparent quite quickly. There's many cases of dreams and premonitions within the village that almost, it sounds like, predicted this disaster, both adults and children.
Okay.
Things like people experiencing sudden fears, choking sensations, impending dread, and some unusual coincidences as well, such as like people sleeping in and missing buses and what have you. There was one story about an adult who I think stopped in for a cup of tea, which they would never normally do at a cafe. That meant they survived the disaster. There was another of a young boy who'd never been late for school before. He ended up sleeping in. He ends up having to sprint to school because his mum's basically forced him out of bed and he's in tears or whatever because he's so late. Unfortunately, he gets there just as this avalanche is coming and he gets swept away.
Oh, he died anyway?
He died anyway, unfortunately. But he very nearly didn't. So there's a couple of these kind of cases that keep cropping up. And, you know, some of it is quite interesting. But two in particular stand out to John Barker. One is 10-year-old Errol Jones. So 2 weeks before the avalanche, she tells her mum that she's not afraid to die, which is quite an odd thing for a kid to say, but then kids do come out with some quite unusual stuff. So her mum just tries to calm her down and chalks it up to, you know, just a 10-year-old's imagination. However, on the morning of the disaster, Errol wakes up and says, and I quote, "Mummy, last night I dreamt I went to school and there was no school there. Something black had come down all over it."
That in itself already is a very weird thing to say.
Very specific, very weird. And later that day, unfortunately, Errol dies. Now, another example is 8-year-old Paul Davies, who drew a picture the day before the disaster of the hillside above the school with figures digging into it.
Right.
And above them, he'd written the words, "The End."
Ah.
And unfortunately, he also didn't make it.
I mean, I know kids say and do weird things, but that is, that's very on the nose, isn't it?
It is, that's it. Any other occasion, it wouldn't really surprise me. You wouldn't bat an eyelid at this kind of thing. But it's how on the nose it is, it's how specific it is, and how kind of it aligns with the disaster. Now, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, John saw the picture that Paul had drawn, and with Errol Jones, there was a third party to corroborate what she'd said, a member that wasn't of the family. But interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, very.
All in, this is one of the worst mining disasters ever.
Yeah.
John Barker can't shake the stories that he's heard from his mind. He's left wondering, did some of these children foresee what was coming? And if they did they almost try and protect themselves from it, like sleeping in, etc.?
It's almost like they knew what was going to happen, but they couldn't put it into a coherent kind of sentence.
Exactly. So he starts to wonder, is there some way we could channel this and effectively try and prevent similar tragedies from happening? So, inspired, John contacts Peter Fairley, who's a well-known science editor at the London Evening Standard. And he basically explains his aims, and he asks if he can print an appeal for anyone who foresaw the Aberfan disaster before it happened. Basically, call in and let us know. Fairley agrees to this, and a week later, this is printed. So they received 76 replies, and even though it's after Aberfan, so effectively anybody could be ringing in and saying they've seen this, they still find this encouraging. So from this, the Premonitions Bureau is born. Fairley handles the journalistic side, with Barker analysing the responses from more of a scientific and psychiatric perspective. So they record the tip-offs, they get dates stamped, and they get compared against real-world events, and then they effectively create a scoring system with things like accuracy, location, timing, to try and rate how accurate these reports are that are coming in from the public. So they invite readers to mail, call in any dreams, forebodings, on a kind of continuous basis, and they start receiving a steady stream of contact from the British public. Now, unfortunately, it gradually becomes apparent that the vast majority of the information they're getting, it's just not useful. Right. It's either inaccurate or it's too vague for them to verify. Someone saying someone's going to die in a fire somewhere in the, it's really vague stuff.
I mean, imagine this taking place today. You just have trolls. It would just be people trolling the whole time.
I think it's fair to say there's probably an element of that as well, attention seeking and what have you. So the vast majority, like I say, is just not usable. However, there are two anomalies. So enter Kathleen Middleton, a music teacher, and Alan Hencher, who's a switchboard operator. So both of them respond to the initial appeal about Aberfan. Kathleen apparently woke up at 4 a.m. on the date of the disaster. She was choking, gasping for breath, and apparently feeling as though the walls were caving in on her.
As though she was being buried. Yeah, never know.
Exactly. So she was convinced that something terrible was about to happen, and about 5 hours later, the school is buried. Alan also reported working in the early hours of the day of the tragedy, and he had this strong sense of foreboding, which some of the townspeople reported as well, which is an interesting thread. And he said he had a heavy, dull headache, which was apparently quite typical for him before a tragedy. Now, the post-mortems indicated, you've actually touched on it there, that most children died from suffocation and crush injuries.
Okay, that's odd.
Which again is similar to the kind of things that Kathleen was reporting feeling. So, thoughts so far on the Bureau in general and these two individuals?
It's an interesting thing, and I'm glad it was set up regardless of where this story goes.
Yeah.
Because, again, you've got that case of somebody with a bit of scientific knowledge, somebody who, I guess it's his job to be analytical and skeptical, and here he is investigating something which is well and truly paranormal. I am intrigued, and I can't wait to see where it goes.
I love that angle as well. Here we have a medical doctor, who's trying to conduct this like an experiment.
He knows exactly what he's talking about.
And the science editor of a newspaper as well. Two people that are pretty on the line in terms of, the reality and what have you. I will say, at this point in the story, I'm perhaps leaning towards slightly more sceptical.
Yep.
The school children I find impressive, but Kathleen and Alan, this is all past tense.
Yeah, at this stage it could be coincidental.
Absolutely.
Could they be just saying, yep, I had this, I swear I had this.
I read about it in the paper.
Yeah.
I definitely saw this, as could be the case for all the other 76 people. There's no way to verify if it's any of what they're saying is effectively true at this stage. But what else did they predict? So, as time goes on, Alan Henshaw ends up recording what is effectively the Bureau's first major hit. So on the 21st of March, 1967, at 6 a.m, Henshaw phones Barker. He's just getting off his night shift, and he describes a plane crash, quote, over mountains in the Mediterranean area. He specified problems soon after takeoff, trouble with radioing, cutting out, and crucially, is the important bit, Tom, there are 123 people, possibly 124. 30 days later, a British Overseas Airways plane hits bad weather while attempting to land and crashes into a hillside near Nicosia Airport, which is in Cyprus.
Right in the middle of the Mediterranean.
Right in the middle of the Mediterranean. It carries 130 people. How many do you think died?
I'm going to say 123, possibly 124.
124 people died,
Oh.
making it one of the worst aviation disasters at the time. So the plane basically breaks apart, catches fire, and Barker notes the close match on the death toll, which is obviously on the money, the mountainous location, the fact we're in the Mediterranean.
He's got pretty much everything. And the Evening Standard publishes this alongside the news. What I really like about this is, firstly, the death toll it's staggering that he managed to get that bang on accurate. It's a high number.
It's a high number. But yeah, exactly. This is one of the worst disasters of the time.
Yeah.
So if you were trying to hedge your bets,
if you were using previous crashes as like a bit of a reference point,
why would you go for something as high as 124?
Yeah.
Go much lower. You'd go what is typically about an average death toll for something like this, is my first thought. But really interesting. Another prediction that's shared by both of them is on the 1st of November 1967, Kathleen Middleton describes a vision of a crowd on a railway platform, and she sees the words Charing Cross, accompanied by a feeling of acute depression, which is kind of typical for these experiences. They always describe some kind of negative emotion tied to it.
I bet if it was going on constantly, it would take a horrible toll on you as well. Especially if you were proven to be right time and time again.
Some of the interviews with them, of which there aren't many, but they do mention this. They mention this is not something we particularly enjoy.
No.
It causes headaches, it causes these depressive feelings, this foreboding. You're absolutely right. They don't enjoy whatever this is. So 4 days after Kathleen makes this prediction, Henshaw rings in on the 5th of November and he warns of a crash and he suffers a severe headache. And he even suggested the approximate time of it. So the same day that Henshaw calls in, on the 5th of November, a passenger train from Hastings derails near Hither Green, which is on the approach to Charing Cross Station in London, killing 49 people. So Kathleen, this is an interesting one because Kathleen, again, she's so specific. She says Charing Cross. Effectively, this is a rail disaster. She sees people crowded on a platform and the sign Charing Cross. Henshaw's not so specific, but he rings in the day of the tragedy. So they're both weirdly on the money with this one. Again,
just to confirm as well, these two people have never met.
These two people have never met. They don't know each other exists.
They're both in different parts of the country.
I think they're both in London.
Right.
But effectively, they're both ringing in or writing in separately. One works night shifts, one's a teacher. So,
and plus, I mean, even if they were corroborating, how could they get it right? It's
if they teamed up, it'd be no less impressive. You know what I mean? So, yeah, really, really interesting one. Now on to Kathleen. She has a fair few what they term minor hits, where they maybe aren't as specific or arguably impressive, but still fairly decent predictions. So she foresees major flooding in a cold or northern region, as she terms it, and then significant floods strike Alaska around the same time period, which Barker does count as a match, albeit a bit of a weaker one. She predicts some severe tornado activity or storms in America, then a series of tornadoes hit parts of the United States, fitting the general description. So it's all, a lot of kind of more minor things, a bit more general. You could argue flooding in a cold region, how uncommon is that? Tornadoes in America, it's not that unusual. So
yeah,
but she does have some stronger hits. So in March 1967, Middleton notifies the Bureau via a letter to John Barker that she's dreamed of a dead father. Now, he's taken a phone call warning him of danger at sea.
Okay.
The dream involves a sense of maritime peril. Again, like I say, there's often a sense of peril. Or some kind of trouble involving a ship or vessel at sea. A vessel that has links to British coastal waters and France. So you could argue something to do with the Channel, effectively. A few days later, on the 18th of March 1967, the supertanker, the Torrey Canyon, runs aground on the Seven Stones Reef, which is between the Isles of Scilly and Cornwall in England. Now, this causes one of Britain's worst oil spills at the time. It spills around 117,000 tonnes of crude oil. It creates this huge slick that pollutes hundreds of miles of coastline in Cornwall and Brittany, i.e. France. And it leads to major environmental damage, the death of thousands of seabirds, and a huge high-profile cleanup that so devastating is the damage, they have to bomb the wreck with napalm to just try and burn it off. Yeah, it's horrendous. So again, a pretty strong, I would say, prediction there.
There's a lot of coincidences that seem too good to be.
A lot of coincidences, yeah. So, on April 23rd, 1967, Middleton sends a vision of a spaceman who, quote, was petrified, terrified, just frightened. She also attaches a drawing of an astronaut crouched inside a crude spherical craft. She just writes alongside this picture, "This venture will end in tragedy." Later that day, it's reported that Soviet cosmonaut Vladimir Komarov has died on re-entry to Earth. He's in his capsule and the parachute fails to open and he crashes and burns in Russia.
I mean, the hairs on my arms are standing up. This is such a... you know what? There's nothing inherently scary about this story, but for whatever reason, this one gets to me. Yeah. It's... there's just too many coincidences.
It's wild, isn't it?
if we can call them coincidences, who knows? Who am I to say?
Exactly. Well, hold on, because this for me is the most impressive one. Kath's final prediction. So on the 11th of March 1968, Middleton sends an early warning about a US senator who she names. She repeatedly mentions the word assassination in letters and she can't connect it from this individual. So on the 4th of June 1968, so we fast forward just under a month, she reportedly calls the Bureau 3 times describing a vision of this fella being shot. Any ideas who this might be, Tom?
Around that time, Robert F. Kennedy. Is that
the same night?
Yeah.
The evening that she's rung in 3 times, Robert F. Kennedy is assassinated in Los Angeles.
Oh, and she's bang on the money with everything.
Bang on the money. The 11th of March, just under a month prior, is when she first contacts the Bureau and says, this guy is going to be assassinated. It's Robert F. Kennedy. And then on the morning he's shot, she rings 3 times.
That is, that's something, isn't it?
It's wild.
That's almost too intriguing to just dismiss.
It's insane, isn't it? And the fact she has these wild precognitions in Russia, in the US,
it's all over the world,
in the
really,
UK, it's effectively almost worldwide. It's really something. And like, to pick up on what you said before, I don't know. I don't know if this is proof of anything, but at the same time, I really struggle to believe this is just coincidence.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really, really difficult one to explain, isn't it? Because how do we even begin to calculate what could be causing this? I mean, do humans, or some humans, have some form of innate extra sense that others don't? And then again, why and how?
Absolutely.
How could we possibly, it raises a lot of questions about time. Is time linear? Is it a loop? Are people aware of this loop? It's bizarre. It's just an eerie one, isn't it? It's really unsettling.
Absolutely. Really interesting. And some interesting points you've made there. When I think of the human connection thing, I agree. I've thought myself when I was researching this, can she somehow pick up on what the assassin is thinking?
Mm.
Is it a case that a month before Rob Kennedy's shot, she's picking up on the planning aspects of it, or someone getting excited or anxious about the idea of it? And then on the morning, as you'd expect, this person is experiencing a whirlwind of emotions about what they're about to do. Then I think about Alan Henshaw, or even Kathleen as well, with the air crash or the train crash. There's nothing premeditated about that as far as we know. So
no.
How come you can almost pick up on someone, like you say, almost a connection to a bad actor in one sense, but then that wouldn't marry with the idea of something which was just an accident, a tragedy.
No.
But then the time thing is interesting.
It almost feels like a horrible, painful form of deja vu.
Yeah, what an apt way of describing it. I know exactly what you mean.
When you get that feeling when you do have deja vu, and it's almost like almost what's going to happen.
Absolutely.
My partner gets it really extreme. She gets it all the time, and every time it really freaks her out. And we have to go quiet when she gets it, because it's like, why are we experiencing this? Why are you experiencing this and not me? It's well, not in a jealous way. I don't want to experience that, but why is one person feeling this and everyone around them is just completely, sure, like, yeah, if you say so.
And that's someone who lives with her. Yeah. Arguably have some similar experiences.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess imagine that, then accompany it with a sense of dread.
Yeah. Yeah.
A prediction about a rail platform or visions of people. I guess it would be. It's not. I guess, yeah, I can understand it being pretty unsettling on its own.
I think it would really take its toll on me as well. I think if I was consistently predicting the deaths of innocent people, I'd feel guilty. I think I'd feel like I was in some way to blame, even though I wasn't. It's really unsettling.
Yeah. Well, as I touched on earlier, that this marries with what they say themselves. This is not something they try and monetize. They claim to basically not want these gifts, as they called them, and neither kind of touted their abilities or sought fame or anything like that from them. In fact, you can read between the lines and see they'd both be happier without these predictions, because I suppose there's a sense that it's going to happen anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, it does feel like that, yeah.
The difference is you almost have to experience it twice.
Yeah, yeah. But I guess the painful thing as well is that there's just, with these premonitions in most cases being rather vague, there's not really any action that can be taken. I mean, you could say, okay, let's keep an eye on RFK on this date just in case something does happen, but a small operation set up by a psychologist in Britain, how are they gonna get to him in time and you know, make sure that those preparations are in place, even if, you know, it's the morning of and she's calling in 3 times being like, he's gonna die. I don't see, you know, there's very little that can be done about it, and that must take its toll as well.
Absolutely. You must feel really quite helpless, because I suppose with Robert Kennedy, that is almost actionable, especially if you ring in 3 times in one day. That would probably, you know, if this was believed, that would probably be a pretty good signal that we should maybe not go ahead with his speech today, for example.
Yeah.
But like you were saying, if it's the case of, oh, you know something's going to happen at Charing Cross, how do you manage that? How do you overcome that?
Because it could be anything.
Could be anything. Could be driver error.
Yeah.
Could be a fault on the line. And yeah, you can check the mechanical components. You can make sure everyone's, you know, well rested before they take control of the train. But at the end of the day, some of these predictions happen a month in advance.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how do you combat that? So yeah, I totally see what you're saying. It must feel very helpful.
Yeah.
And I can totally understand why they wouldn't want these abilities.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Coming to the end of the Bureau, both Hensher and Middleton start having premonitions about Barker, specifically about his death.
Right.
Now, Hensher phones Barker sometime in the early hours to warn him that his life is in danger.
I mean, that must be terrifying.
I think, having known how accurate these predictions are, if I was in his shoes, I would probably ensure my affairs were in order, I think. I totally agree. He tells him his life is in danger and that he should be very careful. And Hensher hints strongly that Barker would soon die, and even mentions the location, which is Yokelton, which is where Barker lived. Now, he repeats similar warnings later. Around the same time, Middleton has a vision of Barker's head and shoulders alongside images of her dead parents, and another dream that, quote, may mean death. I think at this point, where they're both independently contacting me to warn me, I would absolutely, in Barker's shoes, believe that my time had come.
Yeah, definitely.
So Barker, as you'd expect, took these seriously enough to write a memo, and he titles it Some Interesting Predictions and a Possible Death Sentence. Do you want to guess what happens next, Tom?
I'd imagine he dies.
You're on the money.
Yeah.
So he dies suddenly of a cerebral hemorrhage, a brain bleed, or an aneurysm in 1968. And he's only 44 years old.
And he was healthy otherwise?
Healthy otherwise. Yeah. So to be making predictions about someone at 44, I mean, if he was 80-odd, you could argue predicting he's going to die is fair enough, but he's 44. Shortly after these warnings, he dies.
Very strange.
Middleton reportedly has a choking sensation on the morning of his death, and do you want to guess where he died?
Go with Yokelton. Yeah.
Which, it was where he lived, so you could argue, perhaps a bit less impressive to predict that. I imagine most people die where they live, but...
I'm guessing he travelled a lot, though.
He did travel a lot, that is true.
He could have been anywhere.
So, but still, still nice, a nice
Yeah.
bit of seasoning, if you like, for the prediction. Now, this is for me, the real tragedy here, Tom, is that the Bureau basically dies with Barker.
Right.
There
was no one around to kind of take the reins.
You still have Peter Fairley, the journalist, but no one's there to conduct the scientific evaluation on the tips. And Peter Fairley does keep the line open for a time, and reports do keep trickling in, but there's no one analysing them anymore. So effectively, it kind of starts to lose his momentum. Peter Fairley is busy, he's an editor, so he can't manage this project on his own. And sadly, it just kind of fades away, really. Right. And the two correspondents, the stars, they do continue to have these premonitions, but without the central clearinghouse, effectively, almost the switchboard, you could call it, which is the Bureau. The reports just don't have an official outlet. Right. They're not recorded systematically. Loads of these reports are coming in and they just don't get analysed, which is a real shame, if you ask me. And effectively, the project just declines into nothing. Barker and Fairley had ambitious plans to actually present their findings to Parliament at some point.
Right.
And the British Medical Research Council. And they hoped to continue this long-term, grow it, maybe even pick up another star witness who could start to see things alongside. And like I say, the plan was very much that they harness this eventually, because if you get 10 people who can consistently report this stuff, who knows what information you might get.
Yep.
And you might be able to start predicting these tragedies and therefore preventing them. But he actually hoped it could be almost like an early warning system.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, those plans died with Barker.
I mean, I'd be incredibly interested to keep track of something if it was to, if they were to reopen a similar thing today. Again, I mean, I don't know how much can you trust people these days. Who knows? But I guess if all you need is a couple, just like with Barker, you need a couple of reliable witnesses, interviewees, whatever you want to call them, and you're maybe onto a decent looking reincarnation of the Premonitions Bureau.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I find this so frustrating.
And nobody's ever kind of attempted to reignite it. No.
No one's tried again since. No.
It's a shame.
That's it. Who knows what might have come from this? Even if we just kept it open and kept analysing what was coming in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I find it so frustrating. I think, all told, of the hundreds of tip-offs they received, only about something like 5% were actually accurate, which equaled about 18 or so.
Okay.
But something like 12 of those 18 came just from Hampshire and Middleton. So there's clearly something within these two.
Makes you think how many more people across the world, if there's two in England alone, just from a sample of a couple hundred in England, how are we, with at that time 6 billion people on the planet, how many more?
Absolutely.
Is this a rare but existing thing?
Yeah.
A feature among humans that hasn't been explored? Who am I to say, as I've said, but it's intriguing.
Who knows? And remember, they only got 76 replies for Aberfan.
Yeah.
So it isn't as if they're getting hundreds of thousands of these tips a year or anything like that. This is a trickle of things coming through. So like you say, who knows who might be out there who has a similar ability?
I mean, let us know if you listen to this, and you do. We'll start it ourselves. But yeah, it's really scary and massively interesting. But it's just a shame that we don't have anything to go on these days.
No, and it doesn't feel too difficult to set up.
No.
Yeah, I don't know, all told, if I can accept that this is just coincidence.
There seems to be there's too much of a pattern in so many things.
Absolutely.
Even from before the initial mining town disaster. It's incredible. It's a really intriguing set of events, and it's just a shame we don't have more.
Absolutely. And it makes me think back to those two children who at first I kind of, especially the one who slept in or the person who stopped in for a cup of tea,
Yeah.
you kind of, I don't know, palm that off to one side as, just pure coincidence. But then when I think about the dreams that young girl had, or the drawing, who knows? Who knows? It's just, I'm not saying necessarily that people do have some, I don't know, sixth sense, some ability that we're unaware of, but it's certainly, I certainly struggle to accept it as just pure coincidence. Mm-hmm. Whatever your feelings on this story, there is something undeniable. Alan Henshaw and Kathleen Middleton felt something so strong it would wake them from their sleep, invoke unbearable emotions, and compel them to speak out. Is this some ability innate in all of us that most of us simply haven't tuned? Or were Kathleen and Alan just extremely lucky when it came to guesswork? Do some individuals experience time differently? Are humans connected to one another on some deeper level we can't understand? Or is this simply a series of coincidences? I really struggle to wrap my head around what's going on here. As always, we'd love to hear what you think.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Campfire Archives. If you'd like to send us a story or just get in touch, you can email hello.campfirearchives@gmail.com. Alternatively, you can follow us on Instagram @campfire_archives. See you next time.